Thank you, councillors. Welcome to the September meeting of the Warren Shire Council. I declare the meeting open. I have an apology from Councillor Williamson for his absence from today's meeting. Moved Councillor Taylor, seconded Councillor Derrick. In discussion, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting held on Thursday, the 26th of August. Someone happy to move those? Councillor Beach, seconded Councillor Irving. Councillor Beach. Right. Good. Everyone happy with those minutes from the August meeting? In case we'll put that. All those in favour? Yes. Carried. Moving on to disclosures of interest, and we'll note that those who have disclosed an interest will need to fill out the form and present it to the executive assistant. Is there any disclosures of interest that anyone needs to register? Councillor Derrick, you've done that?
Yes.
Regarding
item 3 of the finance administration reports, just again ongoing, but pertaining to the chambers and administration building refurbishment.
Thank you, Councillor Derrick. Any further disclosures of interest in regarding matters in the business paper? There being no further, we note that, Councillor Derrick. I have no mayoral minutes. Moving on to the reports of the committees, and the first of those being the meeting of the Yuma Waste Depot Sunset Committee held Tuesday, the 8th September in this building. Councillor Sergi, as chair of that, you're moving those minutes. Seconded, Councillor Driggs. Councillor Sergi.
Yeah, it was mainly a catch-up meeting to try and find out where everything was up to. We haven't got any practical recommendations from that meeting other than the fact that we are going to get a chap in from Trevor, I think it is, who's going to do a pegging of the circular with trucks coming in and out to make sure that the area that we have itemised as the selected area is actually suitable to allow the trucks to go in and out. So, once we've got that, the committee will have a meeting on there to see something in action to see if it's working properly. So, apart from that, it's moving along pretty well.
Thank you, Councillor Sergi. So, everyone understands we had a budget for the transfer station. The tenders were well to the marketplace. The tenders were well above that. We decided then to go in-house with construction of the transfer station and brought it back from a 40-metre frontage to a 20-metre frontage. What Councillor Sergi is suggesting there is yes, there'll be a peg out done. The committee will go out and look after rain for a report in the next couple of weeks to see how it all might work, and we might just make sure that the operator of that facility is very well, so he can understand how it all works very end. So we might have something involved that we don't know. We're not there on a daily basis. Yeah. Thank you. Questions, Councillor Brooke?
Are there new plans for the layout that we can see? And what's the time frame for commencement?
There is a new plan. It probably hasn't been circulated. It's certainly circulated to the committee, but I don't know.
Everyone, you just need to go look for the business paper of that thing. But they're in there.
Yeah.
But you can come and have a look at larger drawings.
Yeah.
So,
exactly. I think what Gary's saying, you need to have it on a bit bigger scale to actually understand exactly where it's fitting. And so, Andrew, what was the second question?
Oh, and the time frame for commencement?
David might have a better.
Yeah, we intend to start the installation of these stormwater drainage in the next week or so. Start the excavation and installation of that, and then we'll start the earthworks once all that's in place. We're about to go out to contract, put out to tender or the quotations for the concrete work. That's the only bit that we're not going to be able to do in-house. And we're hoping to get that done by one of the locals. Just that piece. We'll do all the earthworks, all the road works ourselves. So, subject to other, criteria and conflicting other projects, we'll start in the next week or so. And I don't have an end date yet.
Can I also ask, in the minutes it talks about the roads are to at least cater for turning circle and semi-trailer and road train. Is that for the dumping of products? So
Yeah. Yes.
No, so 20 metres is not a particularly long.
No, sorry, no, incorrect. It's just dumping for domestic waste. The idea of a road train is to actually be taking bigger loads out.
Onto the tip area away somewhere else, or
Away,
to the pit?
potentially.
Both, because in the next 10 years, we could be forced not to dump and have to take things out to someone else. And that's just catering for the future.
So,
But I'd also say then that by reducing from 40 to 20, we might be knocking larger vehicles out the long term. Like we've made a conscious decision to compact the whole, the drop-off area where the term is being used, but the road train, that's a big vehicle, 20 metres.
yeah,
I just need to understand a little bit more about this. I'm not.
You need to actually probably see the plan, and so what vehicles will be doing is backing up to that 20, that people will be unloading.
Domestic, yes.
Yeah, domestic, 20 to a 20 metre frontage, yeah? It'll be jumped into a truck. What we're saying, that truck should be absolutely any size. So if it needs to be moved along, it can be. It needs to, a road train needs to be able to go in there, and if it wasn't going to our pit, then it needs to be able to go in there and out onto the road where it needs to go. So it's the vehicle that's receiving the rubbish is what we're catering for in terms of a road train length.
And half a road train, because all we're doing is just then connecting up two trailers to go to some other facility 150 kilometres away. If we have a chain, where we change, we're actually not dumping it out there. So you just have one trailer of a 19 metre long trailer sitting there getting filled. You go and move that out, put the next trailer in, and then you move that out, put them together within the tip area, but not within the 20 metres, and you head out somewhere else. But meanwhile, everyone else is just dumping into that one long trailer, which is half the road train.
So it's still not completely convinced. Why aren't we having like a two-stage build then? If we didn't have the money to do what we had designed in the first place, we changed the design to suit the money, why aren't we having a two-stage or more, but set up the domestic waste to solve that problem, because we do have a problem with dumping at the pit face, solve that by having a waste transfer facility for domestic waste, but leave, put the money into that and do that properly, and leave the space and have a stage 2 plan that allows us, because we don't have a road train problem right now. In fact, in the foreseeable future, I don't see us needing a road train or B-double. We are simply taking domestic waste from the transfer facility to the pit. That's the scope it works. Should be at the moment, not this road train caper, because that seems to me to be, I mean, if that's going to compromise the budget or make us stretch the budget further than we need to allow for this, I'm just wondering what this whole road train thing is for right now. I understand that we might need to in the future, but let's have stage 1 and stage 2. Stage 2 is accommodation of larger vehicles for a situation that we can't see yet. Fight with the army you have, not the one that you want. So we have a problem, which is
Larger vehicles, you're talking about dropping off the rubbish or removing the rubbish?
No, I'm just talking about solving the problem at the moment, which is the safety issue at the tip face, which is domestic waste to the tip face, right? That's what we initially tried to solve with the waste transfer facility. There seems to be a little bit of creeping into it. There seems to be this bigger problem of we're going to fill that site at some point and need to take it somewhere else. I think that's what we're talking about for road trains. So why can't we use the money to solve the immediate problem and look at a bigger plan down the track, which involves road trains and things like that allows us the space to build that. Obviously we had a 40 metre space, so there's some extra space there.
I think you're missing the whole point, Andrew.
Isn't the point just to make it much more safe at the pit?
And we have, we're at bare minimum, instead of catering for a small dump truck, we're actually really probably catering for one half of a road train within the dump area.
Yep, agree.
And then we only need one half of, because in the future, 10 years' time, we actually might be forced to, instead of dumping within our tip area, to cart somewhere else. So we're at least allowing the size of half a road train to be sitting there waiting. And we want to be able to move that around and have at least half a road train so we can hook up elsewhere on site to take a full road train away from the place where we might be forced to take it away.
It does accommodate both, doesn't it, as this tweet is?
It kind of tries to accommodate at least a semi-trailer, trailer sitting there instead of a small dump truck.
Yeah.
We don't really want to be able people completely tipping on a 20-metre face into a large one, but we can in the future. Most people will actually try to hook up a road train on the same site, but half a trailer each. We're actually trying to cater for the future within the site, just in case some legislation changes that we actually can't dump there anymore, and it's really a true full transfer station. We're actually trying to think for the future, to catering into, we don't really need a complete 40-metre wide face where everyone can dump for 40 metres. We're actually trying to direct everyone dumping into either a small tip truck, or eventually one half of the road train sitting there. That's all. We're actually trying to cater for the future within the site to be able, at least we can actually move at least a semi-trailer around, and if we can, have half a trailer in, the on trailer in, and another half in, and we can move it around to go home, go somewhere else. We're actually trying to cater for the future. Half cater for the future instead of nothing. So,
It's all to do with road access, Andrew, as opposed to, I think if someone was to explain the plan to you, and you've got a couple of councillors, I think you might just grasp what's being said there. It's more to do with road access and allowing enough room for a semi and a road train to actually work around there. The tip face is for domestic waste only, and it's for that 20 metres, and we just wanted, as Gary said, directed into that one small confined area.
But I'll take offline, I think,
and just have a look at my.
send us the A3 drawings.
Anyway, thank you. Yeah, sorry, Councillor Irving.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just if everyone can recall, at our June meeting, the Manager of Engineering Services did say he would present the new design at a council meeting with a full detailed budget breakdown of the project. So I think you might need to follow through on that commitment, just so for the sake of councillors like myself and Councillor Brewer.
No,
On the committee, I guess, and
Councillor, it's always going to be through the committee. So it's going to be presented to the committee and it's within these minutes here. You're talking about this program?
yeah, no, I remember the Manager of Engineering Services did commit to that at the June meeting, that because the original design had been changed, he would ensure that councillors could see the new design.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of there within the business paper of the committee that you've all received by email. And now I'll just make sure everyone's got access to larger drawings so you can actually.
Oh, I guess for the public's sake as well, it would be good to have it in council.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, if people know where to access those plans, then great.
Yeah.
And the budget, I think, would be good to know though too.
Yep, no, there's fair bit of information about the budget in Major Health and Development School Board there, so I think that's been handled quite well where we were about understanding some, that information is available certainly. Councillor Walker.
Through Mr. Mayor, just a question for the Manager of Health and Development. 5.2 the question I asked about the timber pile, and you said you look into it. Just wondering if there's any more info on that.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I haven't had a chance to investigate that further as yet.
Thank you. I think it's just important in summer, and it's a lot of burning material there, so yeah, it'd be good to make some decision on it.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Any further comments, questions regarding the report of the meeting of the UMR Waste Depot?
Just the one, I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, you got funding from the fire to stand up the tip. Do you have anything else? No more follow-up from,
Manager Health and Development.
Sorry, what was that?
remember the fire that we had in the EPA? Have you heard anything about that?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I have had a response back from the EPA. One officer was satisfied, another officer actually requested further information in relation to the investigation. Unfortunately, the photos that we, from the on-site camera, didn't provide us with the evidence that we were hoping for.
Wait and see now until they get back to you again.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything further.
Thank you. Any further on the minutes of the UMR Waste Depot Sunset Committee? Nothing further, put that, all those in favour? Against, carried. Moving on to the meeting of the Mannix Committee held on Tuesday, the 14th September. Someone had to move those minutes. Thank you, Councillor Surgery. Second, Councillor Brisk, Councillor Thurby.
There's just one thing I noticed, I think it's on page 4 of the Mannix series where you give the list on the executive officers 4.1, where you give the list of the various things that are out there looking for funding for. I noticed, Neverfire gets a bit of a mention as well as Warren, but I haven't noticed much happening in the Carlisle. Is there anything that Carlisle that can get added to that list or not?
Carlisle's getting a reasonable amount of work from the Village Enhancement Program leading up to Christmas and into the new year.
I just wanted to make sure.
There's still some funding involved. Made a significant commitment to both Nevertire and College in terms of that village enhancement plans have been ongoing for a couple of years now, and there's still some money there, and the Town Services Manager and the General Manager have been working through the projects that they're in part of that plan to see what we can fund and get up and running. So I know that that's been talked about at that level at the moment, and we'll expect to see some further work on the ground over the next period of time.
It's like there's a lot of completely in accordance with those village enhancement plans that were finalised in May 2018.
Just one other, it's 4.3.3, and the infrastructure project managers to be advised Friday the 17th of September 21. The Warren will be funded separately using this existing statements to do a water programme fund for the Warren Coronation. You heard anything more?
No, nothing except a meeting that we had just before that. It was extremely complicated. That officers are still trying to work out whether we actually can take advantage of any future funding under that program. So nothing yet, particularly on the Warren Coronation. We were hoping, but no.
So it hasn't been a negative, but it has been a positive.
Positive.
Yeah, nothing's come back. Okay, yeah, right. Thank you. Councillor Walker.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just wondering 4.1.4. There's all these amounts here, but I'm just wondering, it has 175 for the Warren Sporting and Cultural Centre Pathways Connection. Is that the one over the river? What's that one?
That's correct. No, not over the river, but finalising pathway connections everywhere, leading to it. And that's one of the many projects that are on the list and are a little bit final sky stuff.
I was just wondering also the next one, the 20,000 electric facilities, Victoria Park, what's that mean?
Where you're actually done all your walking and you need to sit down and relax.
Oh, okay. It's very good.
one of those pedestrian access plans that when you, there is an end point to these walkway things, and you should, the plans always say that there's a seating thing at the end. But these all, Councillor Walker, say, there's 1.3 something or other, total, in that, LRCI, Local Roads Committee Infrastructure Grant, which won't be available until January onward.
Decisions in February.
So what we're doing here is intuitively we're saying we're allocating $1 million towards roads, they're out of the 1.3.
Yes.
And then we, for one better term, 300 for community infrastructure projects, because it's, our feeling has been out of the table here that roads really need the funding, and community infrastructure, we're getting a lot of other grant funding that's helping with those things. And then these projects are things that we will need to exercise our minds on about what is the highest priority in terms of community infrastructure. So everything's been thrown out there. We need to exercise our minds and then come up with some sort of priorities when it's all said and done. So yeah, ask the questions for sure. Let's get the best result with that $300,000.
Well, I was also, just got one more question, the 4.1.8, the Murray-Darling Healthy Rivers Program grant application. I'm just wondering, projects and priority will be, and the first one, if there's, could be some more information on that one, the plant UV and red bed construction for Tiger Bay Wildlife Refuge Reserve.
I'll get some help from the acting director, divisional manager, that the design of our new sewage treatment works is really a final pond that's really evaporation. And in the end, the design's not circulating back into Tiger Bay like our existing facility. It's trying to get some money to be able to do UV, which is ultraviolet, what do you call it? Disinfection, legally to be able to put it back into Tiger Bay, to keep Tiger Bay alive and a kind of little bit drought-proof. We don't want what happened 20 years ago, one of those droughts where all the fish died in the place, and if you can remember, the Tiger Bay completely dried out. Could easily happen again, if we're not feeding it. So we want to keep our own miniature wetlands watered.
No, I was just wondering, because I have heard people say that it was all disappearing, which there'd be no water in Tiger Bay.
That's right, and this program is one grant application to try to make sure it's watered from that same pond, but legally by UV work and disinfection, and a reed bed. And a little bit of a reed bed in front of it, very much like Tiger Bay now, and we're perfect there.
So what happens if you're not successful?
We're going to keep applying, and we're hoping if we might be in trouble, might not be in trouble budget-wise out here anyway, and do something. But we want it from elsewhere if possible.
Thanks for that. Any further comments, questions regarding the next meeting? Councillor Irving?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on section is at 4.1.1. The WOW agency talks about community engagement plans, which obviously are very relevant to these projects. I just wondered, are they the same as project engagement plans? Yep, yeah, because I know they're mentioned later on in the business paper, and I just thought they might be similar, like saying project engagement plans. Thank you.
Any further on the next meeting? Nothing further, put that, all those in favour? Against, carried. Moving on to the third of our reports to the committees, that being the meeting of the Warren Local Emergency Management Committee, held Monday, 16th September. This was congratulations to COVID catch-up, second clinic there. Someone having to move those minutes, local emergency amendment. Thank you, Councillor Derrick. Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to move the minutes, and I'd also just like to compliment the acting divisional manager of the finance and, engineering services and his staff. I was attending both clinics, which was great to be able to do straight up in Warren, first on the list. And the whole setup was fantastic, and the council staff certainly worked very professionally and efficiently with the Australian Defence Force and our local health services. So, yeah, it was really well done, and yeah, excellent to have that here. So, thank you.
Good on, will be 9%, double that.
So everyone received the email as to where we are as of the 19th September in terms of vaccination levels. So 90% first and 62 point something on the second dose. So, and that's in no small credit. Thank you, Councillor Derrick, for raising that in no small way. Can't economic credit to the council's helping in just getting that up and running. Well, the defence people and Western Local Health District. At the same time, I'd like to compliment Arms because they had a clinic on that same Friday, and wow, Raymond's has shown me one here somewhere between 90 plus on first vaccination and somewhere between 70 and 79. So we don't know exactly where we are on second dose. So fantastic. That's really good. Thank you. But yeah, sorry, Rams had a pop-up one-day private clinic, first or second dose, and I went around there just to have a look, and there were people everywhere. So congratulations to all our community who are really hopping in behind this and really making our community safe, being vaccinated and just minimising the threat to their families and all of our community. You know, when you look through that list that I did, I guess everyone knows this, we were right up there in terms of vaccination levels for the local government area. So credit to everyone, credit to those who got the information out, credit to those who are helping facilitate the committee. And our community, we're obviously proud of it. Our Rebecca Biles, the policewoman, was baking, and Lara, isn't it? Yeah, baking, and then PNC took some sandwiches and stuff over, Janice Oriel. So, you know, I think it's you know, a good look for Warren because we just hopped in behind it and said, you know, we just got to get this done for everyone's benefit. So, yeah, it's excellent, an excellent result. Anything further on the next committee meetings? Minutes, sorry, for that meeting? Being nothing further, put that. All those in favour? Yes, carried. Moving on to reports of the delegates, and there are no delegate reports this month. Moving on to the policy area, we have three policies here considered today. First of those, one is the procurement and disposal policy. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Taylor, second. Councillor Derrick. Councillor Taylor.
I'm happy to move the document, I guess, of what you want.
Recommendation, Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, I think it reads quite well. It shows council's commitment to engage local contractors where possible. The manager of finance will elaborate on that later, but yeah, I guess my question is, and I think the manager commented on it earlier, the contractors all have a copy or email copy of this document, so they're not on the understanding of where they sit.
Part of the advertisement for public comment for that 28 minimum 28 days after and any adverse comments.
So what we're doing here, Councillor Taylor, is this is the draft procurement and disposal policy. We'll have some comments today and amend it if we need to before it goes out for the 28 days. So I'm just wondering if, just for clarity and for the recording of this meeting, I might just defer to Manager Finance Administration for a summary of what's in front of us there, so we've actually understanding what's going on, and then we can go. The particular part that we spoke about earlier, the tutorial just on the vendor panel under that arrangement. So the overall policy, wonder if the manager of finance administration might just give us the couple-minute summary of how it all works and where it sits.
Well, policy hasn't really, it's been altered a little bit, but the thresholds are much the same. It's just trying to nail down a lot more that we're going to be using vendor panel or the regional or local filters which are prescribed under the Act, and that we are going to be seeking quotations for a transparency, basically, that we're not just going and getting, you know, Mojo blow down the street to do all our work, that we are asking Fred as well, and then coming back with some sort of, you know, reason. You might still go with Joe because he might be different, he might do a better job, or there might be reasons for it. But also in the policy, which has been there, is our local supplier discount. So there's a 5% variance, if you like, between a local supplier and a non-local supplier, up to about 15,000. So we're just trying to, nail it down, saying, okay, we really want to use vendor panel, go on the vendor panel where we can. There is going to be obviously instances on smaller amounts where it may not be worth going through vendor panel. It might be if you want to go down and get the light bulb change with my electrician, you're not going to go out and seek quotations for that. And things, but they're all valued up well under the $3,000. If we, with the auditors, we're getting hammered by the auditors with regard to not being able to really prove that we're going out to the marketplace to seek quotations and wanting to know why we spent all this money on this area by this supplier in a year without any sort of backup to say, well, they were the best ones at the time. We're just trying to be more transparent and accountable to the public, because we are, after all, spending public money.
Councillor.
Ask a question, please, about the preferred supplier process. That's not included within this document, how that works that I can see. But it's referenced in here, in brackets, you know, unless it's a preferred supplier. So how does that, is that a separate document for that, or a statement somewhere how someone becomes a preferred supplier? Because then, if that's the case, this document doesn't pertain to them, does it?
Yeah, the preferred supplier list will be through vendor panel.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I think what you're talking about, Councillor Brewer, is the difference between, like, this is a policy, so the procedural document will have more specifics as to the processes. Although it does have procedural elements to the policy, a procedural document will support the policy. So I think I was going to ask that question, whether there was thought of doing a more detailed procedural document to support the policy.
And vendor panel does that procedure for you. We're going to, right now, over the next several weeks, we're going to be writing with more people who we think aren't on vendor panel. Trade services, everyone that we think should be on vendor panel for us. And then, when they're all listed, we transfer the relevant ones to preferred supplier. That's when so we've already got one preferred supplier already, which is the plant and equipment hire. There's a chance that when we have one more one, we've got trade services, and those ones are all listed in the marketplace that relevant to trade services get preferred supplier get transferred to that preferred supplier, the third level, and that's when they actually then have to provide all the relevant documentation for qualifications, insurance, and matters that actually kind of make them pre-qualified and preferred.
And how long does that last for, that list? Is it 12 monthly rotation or something else?
The list lasts until they can't provide us their qualifications and licenses and insurances.
Okay, so the preferred supplier list really cuts through a lot of the, you know, I guess the paperwork to identify a list of suppliers who have the correct qualification. So let's say it was moving gravel, for example. There's a preferred supplier list with maybe 10 suppliers on there that meet all the criteria. How is that list then managed? That's, I mean, this is all well and good for this, but where does this document sit in the hierarchy of documents when it comes to, you know, policy and procedures, particularly for, and I'm only asking this for myself because I do get asked from time to time about this, and it's a complex bit of a situation for some of the businesses in our shire who want to get onto this. It's not easy to understand for them.
First of all, it's even better. They can get on or get off at any time. New business starts up that might be having a hire of a new motor grader in 3 months' time. Moves to town, always got a little bit of work. He said he can actually list on us and eventually become a preferred supplier in the plant and dry hire plant and equipment. Retires, he goes off the list. So it can be continually updated in that area. Same thing with a new plumber comes, same thing. And
So that's via marketplace to get,
initially marketplace and then move to, or actually can go straight to the preferred supplier if he can do all his qualifications.
so in the Mannix report we just had, there was a couple of action items there talked about a marketing campaign to inform those contractors. What does that look like in the context of this document?
Well, what we're looking at doing is, with this document, what we're going to then go to, the two separate things, basically. We're going to market an advertising campaign out to try and capture all the locals to try and encourage them to join the marketplace. And then it'll be Warranshire Council who will make what preferred supplier list that we want to create. And then we can invite those people that we've got on the marketplace to join our local supplier list if we want.
So does everyone who goes via marketplace
We're
with
also
those?
going to have one on our website. We're going to change our website and have procurement and tendering. And in there, anyone that clicks on that will then be able to register marketplace and show an interest to join a local supplier list.
Okay, so two questions then. One is, does everyone who qualifies go onto the preferred suppliers list? Okay, so I'd like to know a little bit more about that. And secondly, does everyone have access to see who's on the preferred supplier list? Is it transparent?
And you mean externally or internally?
Oh, external. Yeah, I'm not so concerned about internally.
No, we don't want the external price suppliers to know who each other are. They can get together and say, well, I'll put in a price list, put in a price. We don't really want to show transparency, but it's not necessarily.
It's an internal thing.
Are you going to cover this in our workshop afterwards? Because transparency is important on this, and there's a lot of conspiracy theory about who gets paid and who doesn't, and I'd rather see that that's as open as possible, so I don't have to defend council's position on who gets what contracts, because they're not on that preferred supplier list, though they seem to think that they have all the criteria. If they don't, I'm sure they're told what they don't have, but if they do and don't make it to the list, then what? What are those?
Well, the only reason they wouldn't make is they haven't got the documentation. I mean, the
So
thing
everyone
is,
who qualifies goes on that was my previous question. Everyone who has the criteria goes on the first suppliers list.
local supplier, I mean, if it's someone from Orange, say, is not necessarily.
Yeah, I understand that. But everyone who's local, who fits the criteria, goes on
If
the
they are, yeah, and they fit all the criteria, we'll go on the list for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should have qualified my question, but I just want to make sure there's no bias in there towards one or another. And if there is,
The bias probably will be the local side of things.
Sure, okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah. But certainly anyone that can have all the qualifications and certificates and insurances that are required is local, but yet we want them on the list because we want to have a bigger market to be able to request quotations from to hopefully get a better bang for our buck.
Yeah, sure, it's competition.
Yeah.
So everyone who falls
And that's what we don't really want Joe Blow knowing that Fred Blogs is on that same list because they can stop it and talking together and saying, okay, well, we'll put a quote and still might be inflated. But if we have Freddie over here and Joe over here that don't know they're both on there, then they might be.
Yeah, well, there's laws about collusion that should protect us from that anyway, but I do take the point. So anyone who inquires, it is go through Marketplace, you need to be registered in Marketplace, then go to your particular area within there and upload your documents that are requested.
Now, not in Marketplace, you don't need to do that. In Marketplace, all you need to do is register yourself as a supplier of whatever equipment or service that you can provide.
Yep.
And there's many different categories that you've got. It's only when it comes into the local preferred supplier list is what Warren Shire Council requires from that group, if you like, is what we ask for that they must have. And then they upload them then, and then are notified each time. So what the local preferred supplier list is doing is taking every time us wanting to go out for quotation, say for the hire of trucks, asking them to provide their workers' comp, asking them to provide their personal accident or workers' or more professional indemnity. What that's doing is taking that out and cutting our list down to our local suppliers and making it easy for us to go out to request quotations, knowing that they're already got all that information because it's uploaded into the system. And they get notified when it's due, and we get notified when it's not due. It comes with red. Okay, it's not compliant. We can take them off, and they can't go on from there. So, Marketplace is only you list your business or your service. You don't have to upload any other documents. You'll still get requests from people if you want to, but if it's a requirement that council really wants to see your workers' comp and public liability say and white card, they would have to ask that in every request and send it to council each time it's requested.
Yep. So who's the point of contact? If I get asked again, inside the council, that people can get assistance to navigate this?
I think I'm trying to get it as far to train her up, but I probably will be. But I don't want to put that out right out, well, it's out there now. So I mean, I'll have, when I get Jim on there, President Clark going on it, but I just haven't had a chance with the external audit and things.
All right, thank you. No further questions.
Any further questions regarding the?
To give a good example, there are about 3 or 4 projects that are going to be requiring supply and delivery of gravel from there's Allentown Road, there's College Trench Road, 4. The road construction managers use vendor panel preferred supply lists to obtain their works and qualifications because most of the material is where possible is going to be actually tipped on the road, not stockpiled, and so we actually wanted road train side tipper. But it did go out to about 10 people who are on the list, preferred local supply list, provide prices for those things. About 4 or 5 out of the 9 or 10 supplied them information. And people who didn't get any of the work, the system advised could say, the ones that got some of the work were advised, some of them got 3/4 of the work. And that manager is actually working through the proper advice through an electronic system, engaging and organising. There's a good example of that, and Darren, Divisional Manager of Finance Administration, will have a practice doing the same thing later on. Yep. Right. Thank you.
Just one question.
Councillor Lee.
Is that the panel used by most of the local government insurance?
Reasonable amount, yeah. See, because the three levels of vendor panel, one of them includes local government procurement, which is a prescribed area, so we can use it through that way, and that's how the tender for the supply and delivery of new motor grader was done. And it went out to all the supplier and deliverers of motor graders that are on the list, which is everyone out. In the first level of vendor panel.
Question to magnify this. In terms of disposal of bigger capital items, the decision on how some of those might be disposed comes back to council, does it not? We have disposed of things at auction previously.
Mr Mayor, procurement policy is as per council's resolution that went through the plan committee, can either be by through auction, or supply and delivery, purchase quotation.
That's no options were mentioned in here as well.
The policies as per the council resolution through the plan committee some time ago.
In the past, has there been a situation, I do remember reading that you sometimes give things away to organisations within the community, charitable, or does that happen very often? Being disposing of items, sometimes they're given away. They're not sold or put up for auction. They're actually given away. No? Okay. I remember reading that also. There is that sometimes occurs.
So on page 5 of the draft policy document, disposal of council goods. All assets disposed of by council should be publicly advertised for sale either at a set price, or by tender or quotation, or by auction, physical or online. Any disposal of goods with an estimated sale value of $150,000 and above should be made through a resolution of council after inviting tenders or expression of interest.
Just on that one, is auction excluded from that one? That's what I was
actually saying. Say, for example, that we go and we know that there's a plant item that we think is worth more than $150,000. The council has to resolve to go and dispose of it. Council may decide by resolution or delegation of general manager to dispose of assets by donation to community organisations where appropriate. And I think it's in my delegations report.
Thank you. That might clears up a couple of minutes. Thank you.
And then the next page, all motor vehicles, motorised plant and fleet equipment are to be disposed of by auction, physical or online. It's the next page. So that's always per previous resolutions of the council through recommendations from the plan committee.
Thank you for clearing that up. Any further comments, questions? More information regarding the procurement and disposal policy?
Mayor, sorry to harp on, but what's actually happened is that I used the process of trying to update this policy by absolutely everyone in the organisation who actually has something to do with procurement, getting a look at the document, our original document, then knowing about it, just being a little bit more educated about it, and then Mannix continually, we had a team, the senior management team, the storekeeper, relevant people actually having a very good go at making sure the document was as good as we can, and then Mannix having a couple of goes at it. So we think we've tried our hardest to have a reasonably good document updated to progress us for some time.
So can I just ask one more question?
Certainly.
In terms of disposal, was kind of two questions there. First of all, who estimates the value of 150,000? Is that a plan committee function?
No, statement.
Okay, so it's a sort of a
And
destination?
And if we suddenly have, so let's say that we get rid of one of our motor growers, we thought it was worth $85,000 and it actually goes for 155, guess what? We have to go back to say, we would not accept the auction price subject to, as an example, subject to a resolution of the council, if needed.
That's really possible.
That's correct.
39 Garden Avenue, back to the council, we wanted to dispose, get with the council resolution, dispose of
There's
it.
another release.
It's over 150,000. So that sort of thing, don't just think of plant and equipment, think of council assets.
Yep.
Yeah. So motor vehicles and plant equipment are all done via auction as per the policy, but other council assets like McAllen Pavilion, we did that tender, but it was a council resolution to do those sorts of things. No, it was well over under the 150, but other assets, I think, is probably more what encompasses on that item.
Okay, and in terms of the auction process, do we set, and if so, who does set reserve for those prices, so we don't get hosed down at auction and have an $80,000 grade and get $20,000 and that's it? Who, is that a delegated authority to the general manager to set?
And or the relevant divisional manager who's responsible for the.
Should that not be in this document then, that actually expressly says that the general manager, and you could delegate authority as well for that, but shouldn't it be up to the general manager to set or agree to a reserve so we don't lose money on?
All part of the typical process of engagement of an auctioneer. Normally exactly that, it would be all part of the process of discussion within the management and senior management team. It would happen just automatically. It happens right now with all plant items.
I think you probably overcome that, Councillor Brewer, by just adding a line in there and that a reserve be set when it says all, you're considering motor vehicles disposal.
Mostly motor vehicles, because that's what will turn over.
And so,
Mostly, I suppose.
what you could amend the policy if you were of the mind to do it, wherever the page is.
Page 6 of the policy.
Yep. All motor vehicles made by plant are disposed of by auction with a reserve put in place by.
An appropriate reserve.
With an appropriate reserve.
Yeah, and wherever it's appropriate to have a reserve set.
Yeah.
So it's just, there's a floor in there, so we don't, if there's no one at that auction today bidding on a particular vehicle and we get nothing for it, it just seems like we haven't done our job to ensure that we get the best value for money.
So you happy if we put I'm sorry, the mover and the second were Councillor Taylor and Councillor Derrick. You happy to include that in the disposal?
Yeah.
Motor vehicles to be disposed of by auction with an appropriate reserve.
Appropriate reserve is set to ensure advantageous prices of the time.
And that, I mean, the manager of the finance, in terms of an audit, as long as we have those words in there, I think, and we take, being diligent about the process, you say, yeah, we got only got $20,000 for an $80,000 grader, but that's the risk of going to auction. And we set a reserve at something, just that the process is there, so it's kind of a circle joined a little bit for audit purposes.
I think that's absolutely worthwhile. Councillor Taylor? Yeah.
No.
Happy, and Councillor Jones, and both happy with that, and then the draft policy. Thank you for that, Councillor. Is there any further discussion regarding the procurement and disposal policy? There's any questions? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 2 in the policy area, the communications and engagement policy and the community engagement strategy. I'm going to look at Councillor Irving because she proposed this as a motion at the council meeting. Councillor Irving, you happy to move that?
Yes, I am.
And second, Councillor Irving. Councillor Irving.
So I'd like to thank the General Manager for moving this forward for us as council, and just with there's two policies there, so with the communications and engagement policy, I thought General Manager did a really good job at that one. We had workshopped twice, once last year, early last year and in 2019, a communications procedure and review process. But this one, I think it's a much more workable document. Well, just for the public, I guess, as well, as it goes on exhibition. There's just, I just had a few changes for the second policy, actually. If that's okay to go through them now, if it's appropriate.
Yep. Let's get them
Yep.
before it goes out for public exhibition, Councillor Irving. Yep.
So I'll just scroll down.
What page are we on, please?
Yeah, I'll just.
In the high 20s and 30s.
So, yeah. I guess it's on page 1 of the actual documents of the
communication engagement strategy.
no, it's the community, the community engagement strategy. Sorry, you did say that.
Communications and engagement.
No, the second one, the community engagement strategy. Yeah, so I'm very happy with the first policy. I don't have any changes. It's just a typo there. I'll talk to the administrative assistant about that one. But so with the community engagement strategy, I just want to highlight maybe in the introduction, if we could add, I think it's because the grounds for a broad-based community engagement strategy was established when the legislation was amended to the Local Government Act. To not just have a community engagement strategy which informed our council's community strategic plan, that we had to have a broadly based one that would be appropriate to deliver in relation to all council's projects, policies, plans, in relation to anything that impacted the community or the ratepayer, our residents. So I just thought it would be appropriate to include in the introduction that basically it's informed by that amendment to legislation to have a broadly based community engagement strategy. So that's on just page 1.
Page 38.
Page 38 of the business paper. So basically, the engagement strategy will, and correct me if I'm wrong, General Manager, will inform how the next council, elected council, will go about developing a community strategic plan, but it will do that, but it will also inform other engagement practices we have with the community for related to other projects. Is that right, General?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I just thought we might be able to, in the introduction, kind of make sure that that the community knows it's broadly based, it's not just inform, which it does say they're day-to-day activities, but more to do with projects like we have running at the moment with Carter Oval and the Showground Race Course out there. Like, it will be something that we can turn to. Yeah, and know, okay, this is how we do this. It'll be like the process to follow. So,
Thank you,
the
Councillor.
next,
Next one, yes.
so just the next thing was on page 39. In the paragraph underneath the principles, the 7 principles, it talks about the community engagement strategy relates to most activities undertaken by council except for notification for development applications. And I just noticed further down in the document that it mentioned development applications, and I just wondered if that was meant to be there. So if we go down now to page 50 of the business paper, or page 13 of the policy, in number 3, under council projects for engagement, it talks about locality-based high impact, locality improvement, site-specific matters and events, for example, development applications, and I didn't know whether that was really meant to be there because earlier in the document it says except for development applications. Does that make sense?
It is, but it's kind of actually, the document is actually saying that there are actually other legislative requirements, and we also have policies that help us in that regard outside of this community strategy. What it's really saying to a certain degree is that it's really our projects that really get the community engagement strategies and plans. We've actually got other policies and legislations that actually kind of guide us with trying to do things in relation to other things that someone puts in some development application.
Thank you.
I'd like to go back to that very beginning on page 1. I'm thinking, so page 1, just page 38, that you actually have a part 4 in that, the strategy says, 1, 2, 3, but 4 would be provide a broad-based strategy on how council will engage the community in regard to its projects, programs and plans.
That sounds great, thank you. So in relation to the development applications, I understand what you're saying, because we did work on the community participation plan, which is relevant to development applications, so there are other documents. So just moving on, I wondered whether it would be appropriate for us on page 2, in there somewhere, because we talk about in the communications and engagement strategy, project engagement plans, and I think that's a really good idea. It's obviously recommended from the WOW agency, but I wondered if the same, I don't know if it's appropriate for that page, that's page 39 in the business paper, or page 2 in the document, to include what was written about project engagement plans from the communications and engagement strategy and put it in on this page as part of the scope, or whether it goes somewhere else. So what I'm talking about here, the project engagement plans were referred to on page 32 in the communications and engagement strategy, the policy for that. So it's number 3. and then it outlines what project engagement plans are and what they do, which I find very helpful to.
Semi-procedural, and it helps with produce. So if you have a look at the bottom of page 32, which is page 5, you grab that whole section of the policy and put it in at the bottom of page 2, which is page 39 of the community engagement strategy. So have a look at page 32. You put the council staff can utilise right down to dot evaluation and put it into the bottom of page 39, which is page 2. Next one. Because one of the reasons, Mr Mayor, why councillors and management executives got a copy of that first community engagement plan for Carver Oval thing was to see what gets produced. The plan that kind of came from that's hinted at by these two documents. And guess what? All those things are there. Now our marketing and communications team can be anybody, not just the one firm that we engage. It could be a future staff member. It could be anybody part of the team, but it's the team that's actually working on putting things together.
Councillor,
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm just moving on. So with on page 42, in the first paragraph, which is page 5 of that document, so it says the New South Wales Local Government Act also stipulates that the community strategic plan should reflect the principles. I also thought that might mean to be that the community engagement strategy instead of community strategic plan. Is that right, gentlemen?
Just help me again with your pages and your...
Yeah, so page 42 is this paper. What it's actually trying to do is trying to create a document that allows us to go and do a communications plan in accordance with the the IPR documents, because the legislation's now been changed that we're actually supposed to have a community engagement plan for the integrated planning and reporting system sometime between the 4th of December and the 31st of December 2021, which is not possible. And so that's why this document kind of covers and is making, here's the strategy, we're going to have a plan that'll be done in a similar way and is in accordance with the integrated planning and reporting document. And that's, but we're also trying to use those same principles that are in this document for that document that we're supposed to have, and that's why it covers it. I hope not, because guess what? We only got the handbook about 2.5 weeks ago. That big. Oh.
It's tiny.
Okay. Yeah. So what I thought that should read, and I'm probably wrong, but I might quote what you're saying, is that instead of community strategic plan, I thought it should read the community engagement strategy, but as the social justice principles of a community engagement strategy, but it's the same thing really. Yeah, okay. That's fine. Okay, so just moving on, I think we're already finished. I think I've got 2 more things. So on page 45, Yeah, it's just, I thought that was really, really, clear, the whole process of inform, consult, involve, collaborate, empower. I wondered whether, for the public's sake, to put in there somewhere that empower, even though it doesn't mean that the ratepayers or the stakeholders actually have a voice at a council meeting, but we could put in there that councillors basically are that bridge between the community and council and can be their voice, rather than our own personal agendas, if that's appropriate.
There's certainly on page 8, it pretty well says that the elected body of council is empowered to make the decisions.
As representatives?
I suppose that the Local Government Act kind of hints that what your role and functions are, and then it's all to everyone's interpretation. Every different councillor's interpretation.
I guess I just read the handbook and.
What are all the steps to get to empowerment mean that you know what the public is thinking?
And that's what eventually the results of the community engagement plan provide you. And that doesn't necessarily mean you follow what's been asked, because by the community, it could be a case of the community, you can't do it. It might be just some subject matter you can't do it. And that's why you're empowered to make the final decision. By being informed as much as possible.
Yes, yes. I understand and, yeah, we leave it as is. As long as we know that we've not got our own personal agendas, and we try not to anyway, and that we do consider that the community's views. That's the idea. Okay, so I think there's just one more thing, hopefully. I just wondered if we could include phone calls. So further on page 47 and 48, 49. This phone calls are a way of engagement, especially for councillors. Although I know our manager of health and development has, I remember her mentioning that she made phone calls when there was an exhibition period or a time of getting feedback from the community. And I think phone calls go a long way in that process.
Personal briefing. Yeah, yes, same thing.
Oh, sorry, where?
Everywhere where it says personal briefing means that. It could be like I'll have a matter that's coming to the October meeting. Where possible, I actually went and saw people already. There might have only been 2 or 3 that needed to be done. It wasn't as if it was 30, but it was I personally rang him to say this is what we're thinking of doing. Ask the question X. What do you think? Follow note on what was said.
Maybe we could put, for example, make a phone call.
I'd just be wary of opening that too wide with Councillor Irving in terms of privacy and, you know, what does that mean? Blanket phone calls, canvassing on a particular issue?
Oh no, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I just meant, you know, like touching base with your constituents, like not for anything in particular, just saying, hey, you know, what do you think, how are we going as a council? You know, is there anything on your mind at the moment? Just stuff like that kind of phone
You
call.
can do that yourself anytime.
Yeah, I don't know whether we need to put it in there. Some people might need.
Sorry, Councillor Derrick.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think that we need to specifically add that in. I think, as General Manager mentioned, personal briefings kind of encapsulates that possibility. And yeah, I would want people to expect they're always going to get a phone call from advocacy team, because there's a lot of people out there. I think there's a lot of cases where it is appropriate, but we might just as well chat to somebody in the street or in some other setting. I don't need to specify protocol. We talk to our fellow community members in lots of different ways, lots of different settings. So. I think it's uncomfortable with the wording under personal briefing, but that.
And it's not just personal briefing. If the meetings by invitation is actually ready with a phone call, I need to talk to that person, that person, that person. We look at a map to say who are affected, and it's so important. Need to know whether they're interested in this particular matter, and try your hardest within reason.
I guess I was just thinking of the new councillors, needing more that kind of implicit, instruction. But they might already know that, so I think, yeah, I appreciate the work you put into it, General Manager. Yeah, thank you so much, and yeah, I'm sure that we can, down the track, kind of review how it's going, and then at the same time, what you were talking about, include those project engagement plans, which sound really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Irving. Councillor Sergio, you're happy with those couple of amendments that were canvassed by Councillor Irving? Yeah. Anything further on the communications and engagement policy and the community engagement strategies? Councillor Derrick.
Thank you. So just a question, if I may, regarding the Gilgandra documents. So I know that they were quite helpful in document ours. Do we know how long Gilgandra's had their policy and strategy in place? And how that's sort of
About just over 3 years, I believe. They've also got an engagement, community engagement manager on staff, but we've got a small team that does some ourselves. So one of the things that their general manager said is the first thing I needed to do was set up some new community engagement abilities of how we were actually engaging with our communities. And their document, the other documents that I received from other organisations, that's my wall. Some of them were 50 pages long. And it just becomes a document that it's unworldly and you just put on the shelf. Yeah. But what was, and I just know that I've come pretty close, Mr. Mayor, because our marketing and communications team, the small firm, our agency, come from this background. And like that, really what we're saying is that you've actually got your policy using the principles that are out there right, because they straight away used it to create some draft community engagement plans for our projects that were just so obvious, and really lifted out of a policy and a draft strategy, because they got these things too and made some minor amendments. We might have it pretty close, certainly at a first draft. But thank you very much for those things. Lockdown's given you lots of.
Very good.
No, I just it was yesterday.
Thank you for that. Any further comments, questions regarding the community engagement policy and the strategy? Being nothing further, put that, all those in favour, against carried. Moving on to item 3 of the policy area, that being the community awareness relating to the activity development policy. Someone having to move that recommendation? Councillor Derrick, you're happy to move that? Second? Councillor Irving, Councillor Derrick.
Mr. Mayor, I don't think this one needs quickly much discussion. It's an amendment to an existing policy, so I'm happy to move the recommendation. Thank you.
Yes, this goes similarly, it goes out on exhibition in 28 days for comment. Nothing, no amendment. No. Councillor Irving.
Mr. Mayor, just, wondering if the manager of health and development could, just explain, I guess, how it fits with the community participation plan. Is that connected to this in any way, whether it needs to be mentioned or not?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't believe so. This is a council policy that's been in place for quite some time. It is to ensure that the community is aware of what's happening in their neighbourhood. As you can see, the clarification is in relation to residential settings. So if there's commercial development in a commercial setting, then it's not subject to this policy. And I suppose it relates back to the local environmental plan, our zones and the purpose of those zones. So, thank you.
Any further comments, questions regarding the community awareness policy? Nothing further, we'll look at. All those in favour? Against, carried. Moving on to the items regarding the general manager reports. First of those is the outstanding reports checklist. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Sturdy, second Councillor Derrick. Councillor Sturdy.
One in relation to research. But mobile coverage, we looked at in the last meeting that it's going to be we're looking at putting in temporary arrangements because of the COVID, the mobile hotspots and what have you.
Mr. Mayor, only our business development facilitator and regional New South Wales, Department of Regional New South Wales putting pressure on particularly Telstra.
Still in the same boat, please.
Yeah.
The next question I had was in relation to the Public Arts Committee membership. If you have any expressions of interest received yet?
Not yet.
When is it due for?
Just at the beginning of October, ready for the, hopefully, a flood of them, for the October council, October council meeting.
The other one I had was, the sale of the land at Nevertar to Fields Solutions Group. Roughly whereabouts is the little plot that they're talking about? But it's mentioned down here that the location indicated on the aerial map, not right. Okay?
It's been on previous business papers, the major planning, clarify that please.
Mr. Mayor, the local supplier that they've engaged has basically from an aerial plotted a couple of areas on the lot that's out there. Field Solutions Group said they liked up the number 2, which is a bit further down towards the actual treatment work itself and not up near where the pumps and that are. But again, because of the stay at homes and they're not coming out, it's only been off an aerial, a little square just written on it and say that's their preferred area, but I think they'd want to come out there and do a bit of geotech work to make sure that their cattle and go there as well.
I did know that there had been 2 spots that they were only looking at, and I was just wondering if they've actually finally picked the one that they.
No one's been able to actually put legs out at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Beers.
Just a question on those new sewage treatment works. What's progress going out there? Is all the lining being put into all of?
The only thing that's is just starting and is the main thing is the electrical. They're doing all the commissioning using big generators.
Is the lighting's all
I
done?
haven't had there since we were the visitors, but only they were actually trying to prepare the surface, of the ponds that hadn't had the lining in the mud then and there. But sorry,
That's all right. Well, it was just, I suppose, the rain kept putting them back, and I'm assuming
No, I
they've
think
got
it's
going a
been
bit with it. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor had delayed more than 3 weeks. And then this, at least they're thinking they're kind of commissioning things with generators ready for the full power to come on.
So the power had to come across from, Gilman Street, is the one that, yeah, and did the Central Energy come to the party yet, Darren, in terms of getting, how we progressed, do you know?
I don't know, Mr. Mayor, but there was supposed to be a power outage yesterday, which I thought was to bring one of them online.
Okay.
That was a text message essentially saying that there's going to interrupt power over that area. Which is going to take about 9 to gather that would bring one lot online, one of the panels online, but I don't know whether it would.
So, Mr. Mayor, on page 19 of the works progress reports infrastructure projects. So, ponds constructed, rising main 100% installed, inlet works 100% constructed, gravity main 80% complete, wet weather's delayed in 2 or 3 weeks. I think it's been delayed a little bit longer. Overall project at 88% completion. Electrical supply to sewage treatment plant delayed because of non-availability of the 100 kVA transformer. Could be the end of October 2021 for installation. Electrical supply to sewage treatment plant commenced 9th of September 2021 with the installation of poles and 63 kVA transformer. High voltage wires will be connected to high voltage mains scheduled for 22nd of September. Don't know whether commissioning the sewage treatment plant inlets commenced 9th of September 21 using diesel generators at each site. We've started the process of the application for our environmental license, because we have to have that before we start and commission the new plant before we start demolishing the old plant. And EPA not onto us, but they're actually saying we're really worried about delaying you. Start the process well and truly early, which we've done, which is really good of them to remind us.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? Sorry, Councillor Irving.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. We've heard back from Infrastructure New South Wales about just for your contribution maybe to
Not completely yet. But what we did do was we attempted to try to do some amendment of the scope of the project to try to stay within the budget. But we're still working on that variation being approved by Infrastructure New South Wales.
Thank you.
Any further, Councillor Derrick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, just back on the Stafford Street water reservoir mural. I thought that the information provided in Warren Weekly a couple of weeks ago was excellent. And it's great to see there's been so much interest in that mural. Just my question being, if that's still on track for completion in early December?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, but I will pass it on to the acting division manager. By this afternoon, hopefully you can have a go, please.
So we, obviously, as you're aware, the artist that we chose has had to pull out of the actual process. We have gone back to the remaining artists that were originally quoted to ask them to do the design, to paint the mural using the same design. I have 2 responses back. We'll be talking about them this afternoon with Councillor Cervity to hopefully agree which of those artists will be utilised. And then as of next week, I think it will be that we'll actually start to see progress on the ground. So yes, at this stage, the end of November is when they'll be finished in time for the 2nd of December official opening.
A fairly tight timeframe, councillor Darragh, so, hold your breath on that one.
Unfortunately, at least one of the artists said that they need 6 weeks to do the artwork, whereas the original artist only needed 4. So it's meant that we've had to push everything up a lot.
Thank you.
If you have any further comments, questions on the, general manager's outstanding reports checklist, noting those matters with the asterisks and moved off that report. Yes, councillor.
On, page, 5, it's just about the river water pumps. It states that, Ryan Mason Engineering, the work will be completed August, September. Do we know how they're going with that? Those pumps?
Further, councillor.
Yes, unfortunately, there have been some delays. COVID has slowed a lot of material supplies down, and with the river being high as well, some of the work's going to happen. So the main item that we're waiting on to come back is the casings for the pumps. They're still sitting over in Newcastle waiting to be galvanised, and don't have a time frame as to when they're coming back. So unfortunately, it won't be by the end of September, but I am pushing Ryan Mason Engineering to get it done as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments regarding the outstanding reports checklist? Being the case, put that, all those in favour, against, carried. How are we progressing? Councillors happy to do our standing agenda item, a standing agenda item. It is recorded. So, in recognition of Warren being a healthy town and give awareness of a healthy lifestyle, council will be standing item item 2 of the general manager's report, that being the committee delegates meetings. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Thursby, second, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Thursby.
Can't see that far down. Just a couple of little amendments which I've already told Jordan about. The Empire Park board meeting is being postponed from the 27th, which is next Monday, I think, to the 7th of October, which will be this Thursday. Didn't see people trying to put kids somewhere where they can't be there when leaving. And the other thing I just wanted to ask query on is it's an email that we sent, that GM sent out to us from the local government, telling us all of the various upcoming trainings that are coming out. I tried to get into one just to have a look at the first one, which I think was or something. And it kept telling me that my machine was locking it with cookies or something. So I couldn't get in and have a look at what was there. I'm just wondering if anyone else has had the same, or even had they tried.
I'm pleased that you had Councillor Thursby. I have to say I'm not ready to accept cookies.
Yes,
good. Lots of things have cookies. It just told me that I needed to go into settings and change something, and I thought, well, I don't play with the settings in this thing, so. And the other query that I had was in relation to the training that they're putting out there. A lot of it is to do with new councillors. I thought they were going to delay all of this sort of stuff until after the election.
I think it'd be a matter of talking to Scott Phillips, the CEO, and saying, maybe we send him an email to say, we'll hang on a bit, wait till it's probably a bit more appropriate.
I'll just see if there's somebody in council who can have a look at the cookie setting and just see if it's my machine, it's just not acceptable.
I have the same problem.
Eh?
I have the same problem.
Okay.
And I push buttons, there's nothing.
Okay.
Not technically savvy.
That's really, thank you, Councillor Taylor, for that.
And, Mr Mayor, and that's one of the reasons why listed is, the new councillor induction day. So all of us who who work here and want to be, and may be councillors in the future, need to book Wednesday the 5th of, there's no going away for holidays. No going away for holidays. That's referring to all the prospective councillors in the room. Because we're going to have an exciting time of councillor induction on Wednesday the 5th. And that should start to set us in good stead, better than anything that local government New South Wales can train them on.
So I inform the general manager that is the first day of the actual test.
We might be able to have a little square up in the corner to help.
Thank you for that, Councillor Taylor. Any further on item 2 to generate report?
Who can you suggest that I can go and have a look at my settings?
I'll start with the Manager Finance Administration. He can point you in the right direction, I'm sure.
Thank you, I will probably visit later. Thank you.
Councillor Walker, question?
Yes, through Mr. Mayor, I'm just wondering, Peter Halliburton, Energy Management Services, what does he do?
He was former executive officer of Origin Energy or whatever, Western Power, Halliburton, but I think the general manager was talking to you about various matters, but...
Yeah, a couple of things. Economic Development Committee wanted me to checking on the capacity and condition of the 22 kV power lines from Navitai substation around to Warren, and just some advice on that. And he's been our go-to person for 25 years with electrical tendering stuff that two previous general managers have been into.
Okay. And also, just one more about the flood mitigation. Is the GM on that? Are you on that group? Oh, sorry, the mayor.
Yes, the general
You're
manager.
both on it. So, how are they moving forward? I know it's an unknown, but I know they're letting water out, but is there a plan that they've got, given certain scenarios?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so Brandon's basically in the flood mitigation zone, so above 100% of full service supply level. There's 100 to 120 is managed in a particular way, and it's roughly 5 metres here at Warren, and they just manage it in that zone. If you go from 120 to 132% of capacity, it's managed in a different way, and it means more water coming here. 132 to 142 capacity, again, it's a much higher much higher outflow, sorry. And what they will always be trying to do is just match inflows to outflows. So we just been kept up to date. I don't know what Barnong is today.
101.55.
Yeah. So what I'll be doing is tending to release the inflow to match that. Sorry, yeah, they'll release to match the inflow. Yeah.
2,900 gone out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they take into account downstream inflows to get a particular maximum level at Warren. When Barrendon's sitting at that particular 100 to 120%. Yep. But we had a meeting, when was that, couple last week? Yeah, so just a Zoom meeting, but it was all relatively sensible. We were able to just suggest make our suggestions, particularly just looking after revenue for us. That's the important criteria. Nothing else, Gary? Okay, anything further on item 2 before we put that? We'll have all those in favour, against, carried. Please have a seat. Moving on to item 3, the general report to the general manager, the Bentley Works Progress Report regarding infrastructure projects. Someone happy to move those? Councillor Walker, second. Councillor Bruce. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, I'm happy to the recommendation. I had a few questions.
Absolutely.
14, it's in relation to the sample to be relayed out of the equestrian arena. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, because, that's all part of the work that we've been doing with the adult riding school. The sitting on the sand is still allowed some material larger than what we want in the sand, and we're working with we'll call it their and our expert to progress. There is some need to get some slope right as well, and to tidy up underneath the sand. And we're actually going to replace the sand and just stockpile it as our material for future use for water and sewer sand. It's perfect for that, so it's not wasted. But we've got some adjustments to fix up the surface.
And the costings come within
Within
budget?
budget.
Thank you. It's on page 16, it's got under, it's the big one, renew or concrete and AC floors in all pavilions.
The main bar area, downstairs bar area, getting all of that.
And new air conditioning, is that what and AC?
That's velvet concrete, which is very much like stuff out there.
Oh,
Yeah. Think of the lower bar area.
yes.
Those projects are grant funded. Councillor Walker?
President.
The reason is significant amount of work going on out there, as you were aware, it's been ongoing.
I realise it, I'm probably not keeping up with.
Yeah, but it's all progressing pretty satisfactorily, and the Jago and Race Course councillors will meet shortly on site just to go through where, because the funding's come from various different places. Now there's work to do with the Faulkner Lounge, etc., and the council involved in the Jago Race Course Committee will meet just to go through that with the infrastructure project manager to understand exactly how that will fall into place, and then they can converse with the user groups after that. We just need to have it really identified exactly what's going to happen.
No, thank you for that. That's just.
Councillor Bruce?
Just a question, what's the update on the terminal building there at the airport? What's happening there?
Trying to find a building quotation within the price.
Still got on.
So the frame was there, the
Sitting there with, it's just one of the projects that's slowly progressing.
and so the remainder of the building, is that being purchased or is it on just the frame?
It's under the frame,
Yeah.
so there's a slab to be done and putting the frame up and then cladding it inside and out, and electrical and plumbing.
Thank you, Councillor Walker.
Just one more question. It's about the toilet in the CBD and the scope's been changed to a self-cleansing. So what's the price of that? What are you looking at?
It says for a better quality toilet.
The scope that was changed to a self-cleansing or better quality facility.
We're just trying to make sure that we can fund it.
If it, how much is one of those self-cleansing?
210 to 250,000 installed.
Oh, no, thank you.
So I think the Town Improvement Committee was particularly keen to see something that was decent going in that space, so that it actually looks professional, was done well. I think there's some photographs of one at Cobar, was it Councillor Atari? Yeah, it's pretty Well, I think it's kind of, the change of
Well, yeah, but see, we have to also watch the practicalities of those self-funded, self-cleansing toilets as well. So that's why it's actually self-cleansing toilets or a better quality, high standard facility.
Thank you.
no matter what, someone's going to have to go in there and actually look at the facility on a daily basis, one or other. Public facilities, so self-cleansing is only a small component of the overall maintenance of the structure.
Yes, because, I mean, we talked about this, we get all these new things and someone has to maintain and look after, and there's a lot of toilets being mentioned and all sorts of things, so, just the maintenance is a big issue.
So you
Down the track.
speaking of toilets, you notice, Councillor Walker, that the toilet out at the cemetery is being commissioned now. It's, waiting for the locksmiths that Raymond informed us of yesterday. It's all happening pretty satisfactorily, and it's a solar-powered self-locking device that shuts off. Raymond, you might just two-minute dissertation on that. It's all operating.
So it's all up and operating as Ned said. The door is on an electronic lock set. So at 6 AM it unlocks itself. At 6 PM it locks itself again.
What happens if someone's in it?
They can still open it from the inside. Yes, there's no concern there that if they're in there at 6 o'clock and the door locks and they're stuck there till 6 AM, it's openable. I think it's got a storeroom set. So it's locked from the outside, unlocked from the inside all the time.
Yeah. It saves someone going out there and opening and closing it all the time.
Yeah.
Just one job, automated, and so, you know, proposal might well be in the future that we look at some of our other facilities and go the same way, because it's just a task that has to be done on a daily basis, and if we can automate, so Town Service Manager is going to investigate what the possibilities are for some of our other facilities. See how this works for starters, and we'll go from there. Anything further on the works progress report? Sorry.
Thank you, Mr.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, just following on Councillor Walker with the showground, I wonder whether the committee, the showground Rascals committee could get more of a works expenditure report, so that we can see where the money's going, you know, and how much is being spent in particular different areas, because I think that would just give us a bit of peace of mind when we have people in the community, you know, whether their perceptions, you know, are real or not, but about how we're spending the money. It would be handy to just have a bit of an account of where the funds are going and how much.
Yep, there is some information there, that's for sure. I think the other thing to keep in mind is this is completely grant funded. There's the entirety of this funding is external, so there must be no money involved in it. And but yes, we do have some information, and the reason it's just an ongoing piece that those things happen, and that's ticked off and what bucket of money did that come out of? It is a little bit of a difficult one, because so many projects to keep a handle on, and you know, there's another 7 or 8 projects that come on board in addition to the original grant. So, yep, taking on board, but that's the Showground Racecourse Committee, I think, are doing a pretty diligent job in keeping on top of that and continue to do so.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just, I guess it's making sure well, even if it's grant funding, we know that we're managing it well.
Yeah.
I can reassure you that it's being managed by me budget-wise, particularly the big one on page 14, bottom of page 14, and actually not just me, it's actually a pretty conservative effort of a project management and project control group, including the divisional manager of finance and administration. That's the complicated one because things just have to move here and there. But I'm able to answer fairly well any question financially within reason. Because the real problem is that there's a little bit unders and overs, and that's what happens. A good example is a comparison is that if you had a large road construction project, and you see further on and elsewhere, you might have $874,000 as a project budget. They are split up and being managed by the divisional manager of that area and the manager who looks after it. But it's trying to make sure there's little bits of unders and overs. It's the bottom line that's an important thing, very important. We certainly are, over the last several months, there were always concerns that I know one organisation thought that they actually had not some of their money being disappeared. Well, that wasn't correct. They actually have to notice what money budget they actually had from the first year. It wasn't correct anyway, and none of their money has disappeared. It's sitting there and being done, and actually, I think 3/4 of it, even more, that particular area is actually been ordered and is just getting worked on right now. But within the budget, that actually was correct and not what they thought they had. But we made sure that we know as much as well as possible what's going on budget-wise within some little unders and overs, particularly the ones that we control going through.
With the McCallum pavilion, it says it's going to the equestrian area, or is that correct? I guess it's just little things like that, and it'd be good to know where that money's actually going specifically, unless we don't know that yet. The McCallum pavilion, you say on it?
Purposely put there. Yes, and it changed the budget from 713,000 upwards from, say, 702,000. And that's for our benefit. Then the divisional manager of finance administration in the quarterly review totals it up.
I think what Councillor really wants to know is where is 10,000 target to go to?
Overall, the whole project. That's what little hundreds and
not to one particular area.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you.
Councillor, a question, Mr. Mayor. The lights at Victoria Oval, we're going to apply for an upgrade to convert them to LED. So in the meantime, do we have are we replacing what's there to keep up the night cricket, for example, or we're just maintaining?
We replaced a lot of those lights. When was that? 18 months plus.
And I think when we initially put into the drought stimulus round 2, we had the LED Victoria, but then that got transferred to, we're not looking to change Victoria Oval lights to LED, only have this window ones done.
Yeah. I mean, they've worked out pretty well for whatever year it was that they were installed. It's just a matter of, I know there's a couple aren't functioning again, but not great in the consumer things. But yeah, as we know, it's a pretty expensive exercise to get someone here to get them up to change the over. But yeah, I think night cricket will certainly be available. Won't be any great drama. I know the pitch is being worked on, get it up to speed. You know, if you've got a goal post there, there's probably going to be an obstacle that might come down one day. Thank you. Councillor Brewer.
Back to the Showground Racecourse, the movement of the cattle yards. We're on page 15 of that document, line 6 of our paper. Maybe it's for Councillor Beach. what's, I don't know if it's a question, but I've had some feedback that people associated with those cattle yards don't want to move and feel like they're having that move forced on them. I just have a comment about where we are with that and some of the background maybe on that movement.
Yeah, well, my understanding was that's a show committee issue, the cattle yard, so I think we haven't been doing for a meeting for a while, but that we haven't sat down as a group and discussed that, so that'll probably come up next week, and then a couple of weeks later, we're having a full showground West Coast committee meeting, but that funding was showground specific, as I understood it. So whether that sort of involves other user groups, we need to sit down and talk what's best fit for everything, whether it's just showground specific, show specific, or whether it's engages other groups as well as not.
Yeah, so what happened, Councillor, the show 3 Days Society applied for grant funding. To do that, it wasn't council funding, so they applied with the idea of moving the yards. So what the problem is okay, if that occurs, how does that affect other groups? I think that's what the showground race was.
Well, that's really at the core of what I'm asking as well. Is that there's, those yards associated with cattle are there and they're convenient. To move them anywhere would be more inconvenient, and so I'm not concerned. I'm not convinced that it's the right thing to do. So I just want to know that we're not sort of steaming down that path to move them without.
And that was reflected at the meeting we had a couple of last time we had a meeting, the discussion came up about whether it was going to be specific to the show committee or whether it was going to involve the user group. So we need to have more discussion here for sure.
Yep. All right. Great. Thank you. A little bit about that.
Anything further on the works progress report regarding infrastructure projects? Look, I do think for council awareness, I think the projects management group is something that's very valuable, and that, as the general manager spoke of earlier, that group meets
a couple of times a month.
Well,
certainly as a project
team, yeah,
and directly the particular project.
So I think we need to be reasonably confident that there's been a pretty tight and continuous hold being taken over all those projects, so that they don't get away from us. And so it's really gratifying that that's actually occurring, and there's a team as opposed to just an infrastructure project manager just heading off and doing perhaps what he thinks is absolutely correct, but it may not be entirely what was envisaged, and keeping a budget particularly under control.
And hence why that comment on page 15. Yeah.
Thank you. Any further on the works progress report, infrastructure project? Being nothing further, we'll put that all those in favour. Yes, carried. Moving on to item 4, the general manager's report. Regarding the meeting schedule until the council end of term, and the initial new council meeting dates, which was spoken about a minute ago. Someone happy to move those? Councillor Sturdy, second. Councillor Carter. Councillor Sturdy.
Yeah, I think it's just tidying everything up until the council election is up to speed. I don't see a problem with cancelling the date.
Councillor Carter.
Mr Mayor, I do have a feeling we can't speak to who's going to be on council until 11th of January, and I realise we do have to have a meeting 3 weeks after, according to the legislation. If you have getting a quorum at that particular time of year, what happens if you can't get a quorum for that meeting?
Have to do our darndest to get it. Part of the advice for every prospective councillor is that the new councillor induction on Wednesday the 5th of January, and that's actually pretty well the last day to allow it to happen. Now, otherwise the legislation has to be changed, and the government at the moment is not working on changing the legislation, and that's just part of it. If quorum doesn't happen, it happens, but you're supposed to follow the legislation.
Councillor Derrick.
Through Ms. Mayor, is it an option to allow for life-size meeting or online meeting for that?
At the moment, yes. Well, I think you'd be able to do your swearing on the road. I'm not 100% certain, but it's really, it's to the world. It means that to a certain degree, we would still need to be a public meeting here. But you're up there swearing your oath, and the public see it. Many things have not been thought about, not by us, but by the powers to be. Unfortunately, caused by COVID.
Do you think it's possible to ask an extension of that if we?
No, there's no such thing unless the legislation is changed. They actually had, the legislation allowed 2 changes, and this is the second change.
Councillor Derrick.
Through Ms. Mayor, I can't imagine there being many councillors that aren't in the same situation, so.
I'll give you another complication that the mayor's aware of, and he says there's nothing to worry about. From the 4th,
I don't know where you're going.
oh no, being a bit facetious. From the 4th of December, there's actually no council or no mayor for us. That's for about 90 of the 123. The legislation amended a long time ago only allows for popularly elected mayors to remain mayor until the new council, first council member. So the mayor finishes becoming mayor on the 4th. The councillors finish becoming councillors, and there's an interim period where the general manager is everybody, which, I mean, that's why there's policies, that's why there's delegations, and that's why he's not concerned. And that could be the political thing that gets him to change a few things. Because the Deputy Premier wasn't aware of that at all in a thing that Bill and I went to.
So then, Council will meet as per normal in October, 28th of October. Then the next meeting will be on Thursday, the 2nd of December. It'll be an afternoon meeting. Given that we'll be very much in caretaker mode, there won't be, I envisage much in the business.
Only things are within budget.
Within budget. And then the opening of this building, and then subject to completion, the Stafford Street mural, and then an end of council term function, venue to be determined, but 6:30 or so that evening. And then the first council meeting, as Councillor Derrick's been speaking of, is on the Tuesday the 11th with the council workshop, the 5th of January. So unfortunately, it's timing's poor in terms of the amended date for the council elections, but that's what we've got to work with, and that's it. It's legislated.
Excuse me, just what is the quorum for the first meeting? How many do you need?
I think 50% plus 1, is it?
50% plus 1. 7. Okay, thank you.
So, any further comments, questions regarding the meeting schedule for the end of this council term? Being nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 4, which we were just speaking, item 5, we just speaking of delegation of authority to the general manager for that period, and I think we probably just need to actually write that in it is, it's not in the recommendation, it's after the recommendation. But I believe we should have a date, with this delegation authority to the general manager alludes to. If you agree, Tuesday, yeah, whatever day it is, Thursday, Friday,
From the 11th of January.
It's only in my view, in the notes afterwards, it's not actually in the recommendation, but I think we need to have it fairly clear in the recommendation about.
Probably just in case, probably find to, the new delegations that will go out, Mr Mayor, would be as dated the 11th of January 2022. But just in case, if there is a problem, it might be to say to the date the new council considers the matter to further extend the delegations to the term.
Next time of council.
Because imagine, say there is no
yes, quorum.
Quorum, we have to organise another one. I then haven't got any delegations.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
I'll move it. I'll move it.
Councillor Taylor's happy to move that, with that amendment. And the second, Councillor Higgins, Councillor Taylor.
The question I was going to ask anyhow is why do we need to do the delegation again when we did it prior to Gary's?
Because we're of the belief that it really was to the 23rd of September today, in the same fashion what the mayor is talking about. We just in case, we're doing it again. So, ladies, I was putting it in after functions to say to the date of when the new council provides further delegations. With your permission, we tidied it up.
Yeah, the intent is there, we just need to have it
For
before
the
the
date of when the new council provides further delegation. And then in January, that's really going to go to the date of what's expected for the new term, beginning of the new term of the next council. We have to work that out.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Any further comments or questions regarding the delegation of authority to the general manager for the prospective time frame? No, being nothing further, we'll put that all those in favour. Against, carried. Moving on to item 6 of the report of the general manager, being the Christmas closure. Someone happy to move one way or the other? Councillor Serby.
Just a slide. I was going to change it, Madam Mr. Mayor.
Yes, certainly.
So, ladies, on remove 2. Get rid of the end, and put a full stop there, and just change that to be, instead of Thursday the 23rd, to be Friday the 24th.
Can I just ask one question then, just in relation to that? When I was working myself, what we used to do was we'd have a half a day on the day, providing we worked in the morning and we had enough flexi leave in the afternoon. So that's pretty much the what you're suggesting up here.
Private business. 5 o'clock?
Yeah, apart from that, but if they wanted to take any time, if they wanted to take the Friday,
Oh,
they have
that's not
to.
condition, management, try to manage a skeleton group.
Yeah.
You see, the depot closes, they start their leave from the 20th with the skeleton crew from the depot wing up. Here's a little bit different, and perhaps the library, but, the skeleton crew still has to happen in the depot, because water and sewer and things like that have to keep going. But the majority are then finished, because Friday, the 17th of December is actually a large roster day off, flexi day of most people.
So just to get us in order, councillor Sir, are you happy to move now with that, with just the one, on the, on item 6 of the general manager's report?
Can someone read it to me? It's very fuzzy for me, sorry.
Council closed the office on the Service New South Wales Agency, Library and Works Depot at the close of business on Friday, 24th of December 2021 and reopen on Tuesday, 4th of January 2022.
So are you happy to move that, councillor Sir? I need a second that. Second, councillor Bruce. Councillor Sir, anything further?
No.
Being nothing further, put that all those in favour? Yes. Carried. Have we done, councillors? I think it's time for a break. Carried. Carried, Curly?
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, council. We resume the meeting, council, in September. Moving on to reports of the Division Manager of Finance Administration, the first of those being the reconciliation certificate. Someone has to move that reconciliation certificate. Councillor Bruce. Second. Councillor Irving. Councillor Bruce.
Yes, I'm just happy to move the recommendation. Thank you.
My view, please, explain what.
British Mayor, at the moment, we're still waiting on some contributions from, the other libraries. So that's why it's in
Increase.
yeah, we're setting everything back into the black now, but it wasn't
At that time. Thank you. Also, had significant funding from grants has come forward, and that replenishes the bank balance, given that we paid forward a lot of those accounts, so that's gratifying as well. which you alluded to later on. Any further on one of the Division Manager of Finance Administration's report? In case, put that, all those in favour? Carried. Moving on to item 2, the statement of rates and annual charges. Someone have to move that. Councillor Sturdy. Second. Councillor Sturdy, Councillor Irving.
Yeah, it's good to see the percentage of the rates coming in, it's still pretty good, so.
Thank you. Anything further on item 2? Annual charges. Being nothing further, put that, all those in favour? Yes. Carried. Moving on to item 3, the works progress reports, finance administration projects. Councillor Jarrett has declared an interest. So is someone happy to move that? Item 3. Councillor Irving, Councillor Beach. Councillor Irving.
Yeah, I'm just happy to remove that recommendation.
I take it, Division Manager of Finance Administration, we haven't been able to, no one's been able to travel in terms of looking at that, completing some of that work in the administration.
Through Mr. Mayor, no, our building project manager was going to try and push them to come out. They're reluctant to come out, they can go there and stay at home. I was reluctant also for them to come out, because when we were staying home as well, so I could say just leave it until things settle down a little bit, so, yeah. We had purchased a little bit of furniture, a few cupboards and things, but, yeah, that's about all what's happened since the last meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Sir?
I was just wondering, the class division, or the petition divisions in the RTA, they're not going up now, are they? They're still going up?
Yeah, no, seriously, Mayor, not under the current budget. Yeah, as what we were looking at wanting to put up. Again, we're still waiting on the larger account, and that larger account will determine how much more we can do. So that's what's happening with that. Well, it's actually for the same company that's going to put in the interview room for the rest of the windows, and then on the refurbished side of the building, there's a big account in, but they haven't sent us their account yet, if you like.
I noticed the bench area is quite wide.
It is a lot wider. If the service staff are feeling that they want them up, we've still got them, we can put the temporary ones up. But as for putting the big one that we're looking at putting in, it's not on the agenda at the moment.
That's good.
Thank you. Anything further on item 3, work progress report? Being nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Carried. Just wait for Councillor Derek to Item 4 of the Division Manager Finance Administration report has been completely restricted funds as at the 30th of June 2021 and then at the 1st of July 2021, which will notice is a bit of a difference there. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Survey, Councillor Walker. Councillor Survey.
Yeah, it's good to see the breakup of, pardon me, where what's left over which has been transferred over, which is really good. In relation to just to clarify my brain, because it's, I've sort of lost track on it, with the equalisation component of the grant fund, what is the actual equalisation related to?
We're talking different report, Councillor
Yes.
Survey, we're on item 4.
Item 4, just come back one.
Sorry, then, okay. So,
Fags will come up very soon, we'll talk about it.
that's good, thank you.
Come back one and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, please, Mr. Mayor?
Certainly.
Regards the election expenses, do we put 32,008 each year? Okay, so each cycle?
Yeah. Through the mayor, I try to put around $6,000-7,000 a year towards, for knowing that, well, normally every 4 years, but yeah, so the last estimate from the electoral commission, I think, was that if we had a full contested election of all of our wards, I think it was going to be around about $23,000 mark, roughly the cost. So that will still allow for an election in 3 years' time to put a bit of away each year.
Councillor Walker.
Yeah, just, I'm wondering, overflow bridge, the major repairs, what bridge is that, the overflow bridge? And it's got major repairs of maybe 5,000?
Yeah, through you go, Mr. Mayor. That was put in our budget 2 budgets ago, by the Division of Engineering Services, identified that there had to be major repairs. We haven't got anyone out there to have a look at the actual, what structural work that needs to be done. I haven't included it in the budget review to bring forward into this year at this point in time until such times as he lets me know that he's got to get going on the paperwork. So, no, you put it in. No, you put it in. It's not going to be done. So I just will bring them in as we need the work to be done on the paper.
And just the one underneath, but operational land reserve.
Yeah, so what that basically is that we have a reserve, and it's really for stage 3 of Gunnedah Estate, if you like, if we need to open that up. So what we do is, out of the sale of council land, that any proceeds or profits from the sale, we try and put into this operational land reserve for future development down the track, so we're not trying to impact on the budget too greatly. Because when we done stage 2 of Gunnedah, we tried to give the land away for $1 and let someone else just do the whole development and sell it. We couldn't even give it away for $1 for them to come in and to do all the road and water to fill it. So obviously, council had to undertake that development if they wanted to increase their residential capacity. And obviously, the large cost involved in that drew out. So what we're trying to do is refund that back and then not impact the budget if and when a stage 3 comes in, or maybe an industrial subdivision or something like that. So all monies we're selling, all of the land that we're selling, well, 2 in Bedford Drive that we did, the 1 out of the airport, I'm trying to put into a reserve to lessen the impact if we need to develop again down the track.
Thank you.
I think the big one in this is the infrastructure improvement replacement program that was depleted fairly significantly because we're drawing down funds to pay for various projects, and now it's, back up in the 1.8 mark, which is gratifying just to have that. In the case of a real disaster or some project that comes up that needs to be done, it's there, and that really, I think it makes us feel much more comfortable now. But I mean, not that it was never going to happen, that the funds are never going to come in, but now that they're there, it makes the whole balance sheet look a whole lot better. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Just to clarify, probably through the Emerging Finance and Administration, is the showground race course upgrades, and General Manager, should that be changed, for the McCallum Pavilion funds?
Yeah, truthfully, that is the proceeds from the sale of the McCallum Pavilion. So in the September budget review, which we present to the next meeting, you'll see that where that's come in, and that's why it's reflected in the General Manager's report that that one sent out on the review. So because we received it last year, I had to restrict that money away, and then it'll come into the 2021 budget.
So it won't specifically go to the
it's just
Plains Health Centre, it would be more spread out across.
It's the bottom line budget, into the bottom line budget.
Thank you. Anything further on item 4, the Division Manager Finance Administration report? Nothing further, put that, all those in favour? Yes, carried. Moving on to item 5. Financial assistance grants 21-22, Councillor Sturdy. Happy to move that. Second, Councillor Walker, Councillor Sturdy.
Sorry for getting too ahead of myself last time. It's good to see that we've actually gone up a wee bit compared to what we used to do, but if you can just explain what exactly is the equalisation, what is it spent on? I know the other part is all the goals, so I'm assuming it's everything else. Is that right?
For real clarity, I'll defer to the Division Manager Finance Administration.
I can't give you a definite, clear definition, but it's basically to do with distance from major centres, so disability for getting goods out here, getting goods at the right price. It's for population, because we're a small population base actually works from. It's also Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander percentages. It's a whole raft of different percentages that they use to calculate, and a lot of it's based on population only and their projection. And then what we do is we punch in the amount of money that we spend in different areas. They have a state average, so their formula will take that away, what it costs us, they take away from what they claim is the state average, multiplied by the disability factor to come back to an equalisation component. And, yeah, and it's a very nice part of the trying to the most disadvantaged council, so, it's, yeah, basically got to do with the population, the distance from a major area, so freight is a big cost for Warren Shire Council because we've got to get it out, a lot of stuff out from, you know, a major metropolitan area, and, you know, we get charged big money. So that's a fairly big factor in there that you put in there, and things like that, so that's how it sort of, yeah, all comes about.
Councillor Survey, the question also saying what is it spent on?
No, I was trying to figure out how it was all, I mean, I believe that's what it
The
was.
greatest formula you've ever seen.
I remember sitting in on one of the.
I'm saying the greatest formula ever seen.
The upside is, Councillor Kirby, it's 228,000, is it? Yes.
Yeah, through the year, I only, well, we came and being put in a 0.3% increase in about 9,000. So to get, you know, 7.5 or whatever it is overall from, it's yeah, very good. So there'll be a $218,000 inclusion in the budget in June. That's probably all still there. We can go. We won't go there yet. Yeah, and that which is a good result. But the actuals, in their draft, they only went up, I think, 3 or 4%. But what they do is the CPI adjustment. So we got a big CPI adjustment where we were underpaid. They believe we were underpaid in 2021. So they lump that and add that on again onto the 2021-22 payments. So that's a very good result.
Well, that's good, thank you. I pretty much had it in my head that that's what it was, but I just wanted to try and figure out why we got that bit of extra, but made it all make sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further on the financial assistance grants? Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, sir. Just in regard to the instalments detailed on page 13, should it be 21 and 22?
Yes, it should. If I put it on there. It should be, yes. That's that copy and paste from the previous year, just don't change everything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Derrick, for that. Anything further on item 5, the Division Manager Finance Administration report, the wage grants? Nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour? Yes, carried. Moving on to report for Division Manager Engineering Service, first of the Division Works Progress Report regarding roads, someone happy to move that? Thank you, Councillor Irving. Second, Councillor Walker, Councillor Irving.
I'm happy to do that report. I don't have any questions about it.
Mr. Mayor, a fair amount of money spent on regional roads and rural roads unsealed because so far we've done only 5 or 6 weeks of certainly 4 solid weeks of almost everything. Very great crew on emergency flood damage repairs. We went for a drive on the Corinda Road, a fair amount of the shoulders of the month, a few other roads. And of course, in the end, we hope to get all that reimbursed first.
So we haven't heard.
Still working
on that.
Still working on it.
Yeah, okay. So that's. Just one question I do have there is Quigley Carroll Road, and I declare no interest. That's my I've got nothing to do with in terms of in the business sense. Sorry, I'm not getting carried away. But that road graded twice by different crews in a pretty short period of time. Can someone explain to me what happened there? Did we have to go back, or what went on?
I hopefully in April, if your brother didn't come out on the road and wet, but that might have been, something might have been damaged, or was it just lightly done to tap and then heavily done, did he say anything?
No, I don't, no, I'm reading off here in Romans. Yeah, no, of course you don't, I don't, but you know, that deals.
Might have done it together.
Okay, that would make more sense. Yeah, you know, I don't know, it just seemed a bit funny.
No, quickly, we're in the area, let's put, there's a chance the boat crew's got on the way.
Can I ask a question, please, for the Manager of Engineering Services? Booker Road has recently been graded, and there hasn't long since been a crew up there. But I travelled on that road this week. I was lucky enough to be up there. The local residents up there have indicated that the last two grades it's had, it didn't get to the end of the road. So because of wet weather, it turned the grader crews around. So I'm not sure what the process is for the intentions this time around, but can we start at the other end this time and work towards Warren rather than start at the Wombourne end and head out? Is that sensible, you think? Because two in a row times that the end of that road hasn't been graded at the Monkey Bridge end, and so it's a bit ordinary. The rest of the road is where we've done the maintenance is sensational, but we've failed to get to the end of that road, so it's missed two maintenance grades.
Unfortunately, I can't answer too many of that. I'll take that question on board and I'll pass it on to.
Yeah, and contact me if you're interested in the details, but yeah, it's missed a couple of grades and it's got those sort of right angle ruts in it as the water runs off the black soil up there, and it's still passable, but it's missed two grades.
Sorry, Booker Road is programmed for October.
It is, but it's not like there's been crews out there recently, so I'm hoping it's to address the end of it, because the first 30 odd kilometres of it are really good.
Point taken.
Thank you.
Anything further on the work project report regarding roads, division manager engineering services? Then nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour? It's carried, moving on to the works project report. Town services, item 2, the division manager engineering services report. Someone happy to move those, town services? Councillor Taylor? Councillor Chris? Councillor Taylor?
Move the report, Mr. Mayor, recommendation.
Thank you. Anything further on the town services report regarding works progress? Nothing further. With that, maybe lots of comments for the comment. Yep, absolutely. I'm just going to defer. We've all seen the roundabout work that needed to be done, or water egress unplanned that was needed to be done, and Councillor Mank, acting division manager, engineering services, wants to give a quick update so everyone understands what was actually going on there and what's being planned for the future. And before roundabouts, thank you, Councillor Higgins, for remembering what was happening underneath that piece of bit of ground and helping out. Councillor.
Thank you for that. As you know, there's been a leak at the roundabout for quite a number of years, and it was brought to a head last Thursday week because the leak got significantly worse. So obviously we had to go through a process of closing the road down via Transport for New South Wales, and then starting to excavate and try and figure out what was under the ground. And a number of lively discussions were held between a number of staff members and other people about what was in the ground under there. We finally found that there were 3 mains in the ground, one of which was decommissioned, So there's a 200mm fibro main that runs along Dubbo Street at about 900mm deep. There was a 150mm main that runs along Dubbo Street at about 1100mm deep, closer further into the centre of the roundabout, which was the one that was leaking. And then there's a 250mm fibro main that runs along Burton Street. There was a connection between that 250mm line and the 6-inch line. So some weeks back we had done some temporary works, installing valves on the 6-inch line, or sorry, 150mm line, that we assumed was the problem, not knowing that connection between the 250 and the 150 was there. So that's why it didn't work. And we exposed it, put some repair clamps onto it to get it back into service, and put the roundabout back into operation last Friday afternoon. Future works, I'm working on getting pricing to underbore the roundabout so that we can carry the 150mm line along Dubbo Street at about 3 metres below the ground level, and the same with the 250mm main along Burton Street. We'll bring it in at around a similar depth with poly pipe, so we shouldn't have any repeat of those issues down the track. There's a very good life, and it's a very good product, that poly pipeline. That's a little pricing exercise at the moment, and I'm hoping to get some better pricing for that. But at the moment, we have in place solutions, so if anything does occur under the roundabout in the short term, we can isolate it, and we shouldn't have the same repeat of what we had a week ago.
And it can be isolated, the problem when is that it can be isolated without affecting anyone. There's other.
So there's two new valves to be installed next week on the Burton Street Road one, and that will allow us then to isolate that under the roundabout completely.
Long-standing issue, you know what the problem is now. It's all originally, now, with the word, that was a good one. Yeah, thank you. Anything further on the works progress report regarding town services? Being nothing further, put that all those in favour. Against carried. Moving on to item 3. We're going to complete the workshop with the works progress report. Someone have to move that. Councillor Brewer, second. Councillor Garrett. Councillor Brewer.
No, I'm just happy to move the recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anything further on the fleet/workshop with progress report? Nothing further, we'll put that all those in favour. Against carried. Moving on to the report from the Manager of Health and Development. The first of those being the development application approvals. I'm happy to move those. Thank you, Councillor Bruce. Second. Councillor Irving. Councillor Bruce.
Yes, just happy to do the recommendation, please.
I take it, Manager of Health and Development, there was a rural subdivision, one on the Marthabar Road.
That's correct.
Correct,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Agricultural land.
Yes.
Yeah. And is this shed being demolished out at the airport? Yeah, no, what happened to it?
That's one product and council keep functioning out of there and go well until they're gone. Council and Product and Council will dispose of the shed, but actually I can do that to RFS doing it. But then we're just finalising arrangements to have really the movement of them to our depot. Yes. But there was $30,000, I'll call it in 2021 budget. Nothing confirmed yet for the next $720,000 for actually the rest of the shed yet. And normally it's about December 2021 that we might get advice. What could delay too for a while is, so they've engaged the project manager to do everything that they need to do, and that's why DA invitation to us, etc. Paul Metcalf is finishes today and it's gone to the same position that they go under. Someone will be acting and that might slow down the process.
Thank you, Zach. Anything further on item 9? Thank you, Councillor Walker.
I was just wondering, the last item was swimming pool shielding concreting. Where was that? Whereabouts in the
So,
the page, last page, page 4.
we're still at this
No,
item.
we're not on item 2 yet.
No, we're on item 1. Thank you, Councillor Walker. I know you're a forward thinker, Councillor Walker, but you're both on that side, taking it to extreme. So it's still on item 1 of the Manager Health and Governance report that regards the development application. Any further comments, questions before we put that? Then Councillor, put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 2, Councillor Walker, you happy to move that?
Yes, I'm happy to do
It works progress report to the Manager Health and Development, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Walker.
I'll try again. The swimming pool shielding and concreting. Just wondering whereabouts that is in the pool precinct.
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor. The shelving is for the roller door storeroom next to the main pump room. And the concrete is to occur behind the green shed where the filtration units are for the little pool and the splash pad.
Can I also ask, I know it's not on if the pool's opening on the long weekend, is there, if we come back into lockdown or whatever happens, is there a plan? I don't know how it works in a pool for masks and if you go to the loo or get changed or.
Depends on the orders, Mr. Mayor. If the orders say it has to be closed, it'll be closed.
Yeah, I'm just wondering distance if you get changed or. It's,
We'll be told what the actual appropriate actions are.
yeah, we'll get
It'll be swimming pool. As far as like,
Everyone's looking forward to going to the pool though.
yeah.
Well, before that,
okay, thank you.
So thank you, everybody just heard that he's alerted that.
sorry, all outdoor pools are open, but the indoor pools are closed, as far as I'm aware.
Just a point, if we might, I might be Manager Health and Government. When we in the say 2020 project, where it lists the project, could you actually just say where, with a little bit more detail where they are? So I'm looking at one wireless scoreboard, well that's internal in the sporting and cultural centre. So if we just actually put that, then there's say some next one down, electronic scoreboard, that's the same one, but we just need to note it. And then we can say waterproof lockers and change room double-sided seating. That swimming pool, can we just put swimming pool? So just so that we know which venue, because they could be a little interchangeable about where they are, so everyone's very clear about what facility we're talking about. Anything further on the works progress report from the Manager Health and Development? Nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour? Yes, carried. You have no notice of motion or questions about notice? No one's alerted to me any of the matters of urgency. Is anything from the floor as a matter of urgency? Nothing there. There are no confidential matters. In this case, we can, sorry, councillor.
Just one query, did you want me to give you just a wee little summary on the small towns reference group?
I can do that after the meeting. Thank you. Anything further before we close the meeting? Being the case, we declare the meeting closed.